My name's Caroline Dean and I'm an insight manager in the Greene King managed insight team. So my job is all about understanding the customer in great detail, really understanding how they're feeling and what they want from pubs. And yeah, today I'll go on to tell you initially about how consumers are feeling at the moment, because it is it's an uncertain time again. And then summer, we've obviously got some bank holidays coming up, summer food, drink, beer gardens, and then World Cup preparations. World Cup's a bit different this time. It's a different time zone. So we'll talk a little bit about how that is impacting how consumers feel. So starting with consumer sentiment so far in 2026, and I'm sorry to tell you, but I'm sure you could guess that consumer confidence has sadly dropped. So consumer confidence is a measure of how people feel about the last 12 months and the next 12 months. And you can imagine that it's the confidence in the next 12 months that is really driving this drop in consumer confidence, and particularly a lack of confidence in the general UK economy. It is driven by cost increases due to the conflict in the Middle East. But even since this piece of work was done, since the interviewing was done for this, there's been more change. You know, Keir Starmer's today talking to his party about his future. So it is quite an uncertain and a bit of a worrying time. What I would say is that the biggest concern of consumers at the moment is the impact on their fuel costs and their energy bills. And that's quite different so the last time we had this kind of global conflict, when the war between the Ukraine and Russia started, we saw an immediate impact on food prices. And that was consumers' biggest concern and their biggest worry. And it impacted their propensity to eat out as well. So we felt a really immediate impact of it. This time, because we've not had to look at where we buy food from in the way that we did with Russia and the Ukraine, the impact has been more on fuel. And so when we've asked customers, which of the following actions have you taken since the beginning of the Middle East conflict to help manage your finances, actually cutting fuel consumption has been the biggest impact on their behaviours and their habits, which is good news for us, because you can see that reducing spend on eating out of home and going out for drinks are lower down. And yes, 32% and 29%. They're still kind of significant amounts, but not to the same extent that we saw immediately after the Russia and the Ukraine invasion. So we saw a really steep drop off in consumer confidence, and we saw people really kind of cutting back on their spend on eating and drinking out, whereas this time it's been much more about being a bit more careful with fuel consumption. Only 7% of pub goers have an electric vehicle. So it's really in its infancy at the moment, definitely not that mainstream, not that many people have got them. So a lot of people are still very much impacted, majority are still very much impacted by the price at the pumps, the price of petrol and diesel. And our consumer segments, and generally the biggest tactic that they're employing in terms of managing their finances at this uncertain time is cutting fuel consumption or being a bit more careful with energy consumption at home. The two segments that we have to be more mindful of are down-to-earth deal seekers. They're particularly important for us in managed, and if you do have a value food offering, then they're more likely to be visiting your pub. And cautious homebodies. So these are the two segments that are telling us that they're more likely to be reducing spend on eating out of home. So they're the two segments that we need to communicate with, really get across clearly our value offering, and make sure that they can still afford to eat and drink out of home. And then the other coping strategy that customers are telling us that they're most likely to employ, and this doesn't change, I ask this quite regularly, but it doesn't really change, is looking for vouchers and deals. So we know, again, in the managed world, M&B always really big, and they're doing it again this week on 40% off. Marston's are the same as well. So a lot of vouchering and deals happening at the moment to fight for that spend and to kind of get people in. So yeah, just be aware of that and aware of kind of what's happening in managed. And if there are things that you can do to communicate amazing value for money, whether it's 2 courses for a set price or a midweek deal, burger and a pint for X, that is what customers are looking for at the moment, to be able to continue to justify spending on eating out of home. I want to bring in some spend data from other categories as well, because I think it's quite interesting context. So Barclaycard, they can see obviously what we're all spending, and they report on different categories: digital content and subscriptions. So, good cinema and film releases, which then really quickly go to Netflix, increased cost of streaming subscriptions. That's driven growth year on year. This is April's data, I believe. And then travel spend is down year on year. And that's really interesting because it's the first decline following 5 years of consistent growth. So we've had such a strong recovery in travel since the pandemic. But suddenly, because of the Middle East conflict, and I imagine hantavirus is potentially playing a role here as well more recently, this is driving spend in travel agents down, and also with airlines as well. So we're doing a piece of work at the moment to look at whether people are choosing to stay in the UK a bit more this year. There was a report on the BBC yesterday about the growth in staycations. I think that could be quite an interesting trend for us, and especially if you have a site that's in a more touristy area as well. So what this means for us: concerns over fuel and energy prices at the moment are where people are cutting back, and also a bit of a reduced spend on holiday abroad, which could potentially be more of an opportunity for us if more people do stay in the UK, do day trips, holiday in the UK. Down-to-earth deal seekers and cautious home bodies are most likely to cut back on spend out of home. So they're the two segments to be mindful of. If you know through Hotspot that these are the segments that are visiting your pub, these are the ones to really kind of clearly communicate value to. And then all segments really are looking for vouchers, deals, discounts, cheaper places to eat out. So looking for really good value at the moment. So it's confident communication of price and value that are going to be key over the coming months, particularly for brands targeting those segments that are a bit more likely to cut back. Now let's go into summer pub visits with the bank holidays coming up and hopefully some good weather. We've had some lovely sunny weather. Temperature is cooler year on year at the moment. We're still waiting for the sort of proper summer temperatures to come in. I have shared some of this content with you before, but thought it was really worth a reminder as we go into that summer period. So we asked pub goers what it is that they're most looking forward to about going to the pub in summer. And it's beer gardens, it's spending time in beer gardens, summer drinks, summer foods and barbecues. So they're the things to, really optimise your beer garden as we're going into the summer months and the warmer weather is approaching. And your offer in terms of more seasonal food and drink. Barbecues are a great event to put on to publicise as well to increase footfall. Pubgoers can really easily name their favourite summer food and drink as well. So the kind of drinks that they tell us that they look forward to, cocktails, pins with fruit, flavoured gin and tonics, Aperol spritz. There's a lot of other different types of spritz now: limoncello spritz, Hugo spritz, etc. And then a classic cold beer, cold cider. When it comes to food, the kind of food that pubgoers tell us that they look forward to at summer is barbecues, barbecued meat, grilled vegetables, skewers, etc., salads, lighter bites, lighter desserts, having an ice cream, sorbet, etc., seafood, fish, and then good old burgers. And the other thing that consumers tell us is that they do really like to spend a bit more time than usual in the pub in the early evening, in the afternoon, obviously, to kind of make the most of the sun and really enjoy the beer garden. We did a bit of work speaking to customers about their perfect pub garden, and the kind of things that they told us were comfortable seating, making sure that there's both sunny areas and shaded areas for whatever their preference is, flowers and planting. Obviously, the more kind of colour and greenery you can add really helps. Heaters for the evening. We know that in the UK it's very rare, even when we've had a lovely hot day, it's very rare to have a warm evening and night. So in order to kind of keep people staying outside for longer, outdoor heaters work really well. Yep, shady spots are key. So having parasols, umbrellas, etc., so that people that don't want to be in direct sunlight have got a shady spot. Fairy lights, real grass, both kind of things that make a pub garden just elevate it a little bit more and make it a little bit more kind of special and different. Space between tables as well, so making sure people have got privacy, and again this really helps with service as well, and making sure that team can get between the tables to serve customers. Background noises, background music is nice if you can deliver that. Customers talk to us about projectors showing music videos, but obviously we've got the World Cup this year, so actually probably outdoor screens. will be more relevant. And then the really key thing to say about gardens is making sure the service is good and the team are kind of going out, clearing tables, checking if people want more drinks, etc., etc., keeping it nice and tidy. So what can we do to maximise the summer opportunity? It's always a high spend priority going out for food and drinks at summer for our customer base. And with economic pressures kind of easing and weather improving, summer does tend to be a time when people forget about, some of the stresses and just want to connect with others and want to socialise. So keeping in mind that quality, value, atmosphere are absolutely key. Food and drink tailored for the summer months. If you can offer something a bit different in summer, then that could encourage more people to come. And then making sure that comfort, shade, heating, blankets, and really nice decor are available to maximise your beer garden opportunity as well. So finally, I am going to talk a bit about the World Cup. We've done quite a lot of research on sport, day-to-day sport, just general kind of football, rugby, etc., but also previous tournaments. So we can draw on some of those learnings. And there are a few key factors in deciding where to watch sport. So one is availability of TVs and seating. The other is value for money, and then the third is location. So a good variety of TV screens to make sure that customers can see them, large screens, good high quality, and a good range of unobstructed viewing angles is really, really key. Commentary should be clear too, so they want commentary on so that they can kind of hear what's being talked about, hear what's going on, etc. And well synced to the images, no delay ideally too. Value for money, gosh, I've talked about this so much over recent webinars. It is absolutely key at the moment, particularly given everything that's going on kind of macroeconomically. And then location becomes really important for sport as well. Convenient, being able to walk there, have a drink, walk home, etc. Atmosphere and service are really important too. So I think it's worth saying that when it comes to a big tournament like the World Cup, you're going to get a lot of people coming in that don't usually go to the pub to watch football. So they're not your kind of people that are used to the, the raucous atmosphere of, what can be a football game. So warm, friendly staff that make customers feel comfortable, safe, welcome, etc. is really, really key. And, a fun atmosphere is what they're looking for, and it's what's going to get them out of the home. They can watch these games at home, but the atmosphere, and it might be that you choose to sort of decorate, it might be that you choose to put, flags up, etc., or have some sort of kind of game, sweepstake, etc. But the more fun you can make it, the better. Service is really key. I mean, customers do expect it to be a stressful time for staff, but they appreciate a friendly approach, and staff kind of working across the bar methodically. The staff enthusiasm runs across to customers as well. So if staff are wearing, whether it's an England shirt, Scotland shirt, etc., or their home nationality, etc., then that all kind of adds to the fun. Staying local, I talked about convenience earlier and convenient location, but it's going to be even more important this year, we think, based on talking to customers about the World Cup, and given the later games. The World Cup this year is going to be screened from the Americas, and there is quite a big time difference, which means that some of the games are going to be a bit later. And of course, the early evening games, 5 to 8 p.m, do have more appeal. But consumers are still telling us that they're keen to and open to going to the pub to watch the games in the pub, even when they're a bit later on. That 9 to 11 p.m. slot, you've still got 63% of England fans and 54% of Scotland fans saying that they will go to the pub to watch the game. But obviously, if it's a bit kind of closer and you don't have to drive and you can get there easier, like a local kind of rural pub has definitely got more appeal this year. So I think about the people that are within walking distance of your pub, I guess, for targeting when it comes to World Cup comms, because they're going to be, with the games being a bit later, they're going to be really key this year and just looking for somewhere local and easy to watch them. And then the final thing that I want to talk to you about is 60 Years of Hurst. So this is our World Cup beer brewed especially for pub partners and franchise. So it's exclusive. It's not going to be available in any other pubs or in any of our managed pubs. and it's a refreshing 4% golden pale ale. So really good for summer, good kind of session ale, good for watching sport as well. And made in collaboration with Jeff Hurst, so that the last surviving member of that World Cup winning squad, which is really nice. And 5p from every pint goes to Diversability, so that's Sir Jeff's charity as well. So not only are you going to get a great tasting pint as a customer, but you also be doing a bit of good for charity as well. So yeah, another draw, another thing to talk about, another thing to kind of get customers in. And that's it from me for today. So hopefully that gives you some ideas, some inspiration, and yeah, just makes you quite excited about what's ahead. Hopefully some great weather and a great summer of sport.